with Where's Watson. Today I'm with Pablo Hidalgo. He's a creative communications graduate from Red River College, and he works with Lucasfilms for over 20 years. We're also very pleased that he's a Red River College Distinguished Graduate Award winner, and we bestowed upon him that honor in 2018. And I had the pleasure of meeting Pablo when he was in Winnipeg that year. He still has a very soft spot for Winnipeg and a soft spot for Red River, and so he's kindly agreed to join me on Where's Watson to talk a little bit about his new book, to talk about his experience with Red River College, and to talk about what he's excited about and what the last year has been like through the pandemic. Pablo is located in California, and very pleased to have him join me today. So welcome, Pablo Hidalgo.
Good to see you again, Christine.
Good to see you too. So tell me a little bit, go back to the 90s and talk a little bit about what led you to Red River College and why you chose this career path.
Oh boy, yeah. So dialing back quite a ways. I was in my early 20s, I guess, and just, finished high school, wasn't quite sure where I wanted to go next. I knew that I wanted something creative and something that was really hands-on and actually, produced something. I had done some volunteer work for the National Film Board and this group called the Manitoba Society of Independent Animators. So I really got a taste of like applied creativity. As I've said this before, Winnipeg just kind of harbors creativity because of the amount of downtime you have indoors, avoiding the cold. So it's a great place to inspire indoor hobbies that you could just get your hands into and create with. And so that I always knew that it would follow into something in the creative path. And a lot of my colleagues at the time were trying out university, were trying out Red River. And I was hearing more positive results from people who had gone down the Red River path. It's different for everybody's tastes, but what I was finding in my particular age group is that the folks who had gone to 4-year university classes were still kind of finding, like it was a great place to find where you wanted to go, whereas the folks who had a more immediate need to, like, again, just join the workforce and get some hands-on experience, were finding much more in the Red River option. So that sounded like that was interesting to me, and it came down to almost a coin flip. I knew I wanted to either take, from what I had read, Crecom or advertising art, just because they both spoke to the kinds of things that I'd like to do. I like to write and I like to illustrate. And in a weird kind of pragmatic, practical way, Crecom at the time was more affordable for me than ad art. So it's like, all right, I'm going to take that one. That seems pragmatic. And it was great. I mean, it was wonderful. And again, not to be super mercenary about it, but the practical reality is I saw more people get employment coming out of their second year of Crecom than I saw coming out of any other courses. And that sounded very appealing to me because I was just really interested to just, get some work experience under my belt.
That's wonderful. So you moved on from Red River into McKim Communications and Films and Events. To tell us a little bit about how your experience at Red River really generated this enormously exciting opportunity to move into large productions and the valuable work that you do with Lucasfilm.
A lot of it has to do with, like, I mean, you hear this in the description of the course all the time. It's just like it paves the way to understanding how deadlines work, how sort of interlocking needs work. Like somebody can't get their job started until you get your job done, and you can't get your job started until someone else before you gets that. So that whole reality of it, that symbiotic relationship in a professional realm really instills in you that need to get stuff done quickly, but also, in a polished, usable way. So that was a great grounding. There was no, you hit the ground running with Crecom. And then from there, McKim just made that real, because then you had real clients and real people to deal with. And in reality, it's like you learn to foster relationships. My McKim experience led directly to my next job, which is at Frantic Films, because Frantic Films was one of our suppliers. They did VFX for our commercial work. And I struck up a really good relationship with the team at Frantic Films such that they offered me a job. I'm like, oh, that's great. I'll take that. And now I got into visual effects and production experience. And in the background of all that, I had been freelancing Star Wars stuff. I was doing I was writing for the role-playing game out of a single publisher that was attached to Lucasfilm, but they were not, it wasn't Lucasfilm. It was an outside publisher called West End Games, based out of Pennsylvania. And I had started writing for them, just a complete kind of the textual equivalent of a cold call, writing a letter saying I'd like to do this kind of stuff. And that worked. And I'd met them through conventions, and then through conventions, I'd also met some Lucasfilm reps. So again, it's all that kind of networking. Even at the time, I wasn't understanding it as networking. I thought it was just talking to people who had interesting jobs. And it did open doors. So again, it was a blur because, I think I graduated 95, 96. Again, it's a blur. And then by 2000, I was down in Northern California working for Lucasfilm. So as I said, I was interested in hitting the ground running by going to CRECOM, and I could not have predicted that's where I ended up, going. So.
Wow. Amazing. And 20 years later, look where you are.
Yeah.
I'm really interested. You've not only, contributed to, many of the films in the franchise and some Disney Plus work and The Mandalorian. You've also published, and you've got a new book out.
Sure.
Star Wars, Fascinating Facts, Story, Lore, and Facts from the Greatest Galaxy. So tell us about becoming a published author as well, and what that was like.
Sure. Again, I'm super fortunate because it wasn't necessarily on my bucket list. It wasn't a trajectory that I had planned. It was, again, but at least I had, the skills to take advantages of opportunities when they arose, right? So more and more, I was starting to get publishing work because, and this is so funny, because deadlines were so tight. They wanted to go to authors whose work they didn't have to fact check and go deep in, and educate and bring up to speed on the subject matter. So I had quickly established myself at Lucasfilm as someone who really knew Star Wars, who knew the history, and not only Star Wars, but just like other aspects of the company and production wise, right? So more and more, these publishers that had like a lot of big, dense works with some really intense deadlines would come to me saying, like, can you get this done in a few weeks, a few months, or whatever? And it's like, yeah, I could do that. And so I became the go-to guy for a lot of these projects. And some of them are like enormous, like the Star Wars Encyclopedia that came out in 2008 was this gigantic 1,000,000-word 3-volume tome that came together really fast. And that was me and a bunch of different authors. The Essential Reader's Companion, which came out in 2012, ended up being this 500-page look back retrospective summary of all the published Star Wars books that had been out at that time. And as you can see behind me,
yes.
This is my library. This is my personal Star Wars library. So yes, I am a fan, and I was able to, again, it's one of those things where the ask was, can you summarize 30 years, 30 plus years of publishing in the timeline allotted? And it's like, yeah, because I have 30 years of reading this stuff. I have this experience, so I was able to translate it pretty well. So the latest one, and I have it right here. It's the Fascinating Facts, and this was actually a breeze comparatively because I'm so used to having these super overly ambitious giant projects that when they came for me to this one and they wanted it to be more like a casual reader, a kind of super browsable, pick up, read a paragraph, put it down. It's like, wow, that's super easy. I could do that in my sleep. But that, I don't want to downplay it because there is still a level of research and polish and you have to bring it up. But like in terms of, being able to fill the pages with 200 some odd facts, it's like, yes, I have that at my disposal. So the folks in publishing were able to, at Portable Press, were able to, we were able to figure out the schedule, do it, and it's out now. And I think there's an appetite for people who just kind of don't want to take a deep dive, but are just more interested in interesting factoids and in a format that's, a little bit more verifiable, at least, than just searching the internet for Star Wars facts. Maybe, I don't know. That might be a biased point of view, but yeah, that came out together pretty well, and that's the last thing that I think I've had published lately.
That's wonderful. Well, I think we can be pretty certain that you're the go-to for that encyclopedic knowledge about the franchise, about the films. It really is about, you know, the entire universe of Star Wars.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's extraordinary, and we're very proud that you know, are associated with Red River and carry that banner so proudly. I know that you still have family in Winnipeg, so I bet that's been hard to, you know, to be missing them. And I believe your parents are still here, so.
They are, yeah. Yeah, it's tough, you know, because they're getting older and you want to visit them more often than you can, but you realize all these hurdles that are in the way. So you make do in the ways that you can. And I'm happy to say, you know, my parents, if you know, my mom's been vaccinated, my dad is on track too. I've gotten one out of the two vaccines so far, so we're all taking these steps closer to being able to return to that sort of normalcy and hopefully one day meet face to face again and not have to worry about so many factors.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that next time you're in Winnipeg, you'll stop by Red River. We're opening a new innovation center, which is absolutely astoundingly beautiful. So we look forward to hosting you the next time you're here. Before I let you go, I'm just wondering, you know, for new graduates coming out of CRECOM or creative arts programs, or for those who are considering a career in the creative arts, what advice might you give? You've already talked a little bit about the importance of networking and just, you know, being bold enough to ask for meetings or cold call. But I'm also interested in what other advice you might have for our new graduates as they pursue their careers.
And a lot of it, again, looking back at where I ended up, it's easy to be a little flippant and say, well, I never planned any of this, right? But in reality, like if I have to take credit, the credit comes from in nurturing and fostering skills at a professional level so that when a door opened, I was able to present the best foot forward and take that opportunity when it happens. So a lot of that is comes down to, you know, maintaining a professional quality of presentation and accountability and all the things that you do, whether it be for like, you know, just like a passion projects, whether it be hobbies or you know, your professional skills. So, you know, you polish your communication skills, polish the things that you love doing to the degree that even if you don't intend to share it, it is shareable. Because you never know when someone might need like, hey, I need a 300 or I need a 30-year history of Star Wars literature. Can you do that? Yes, I can, because I actually have all the work kind of already done. So
Exactly, exactly. Oh, well, listen, thank you. Thanks for your advice. Thank you for your support. And thank you very much for joining me today on Where's Watson.
it's a pleasure.
Take care.
You too.